second part of Lecture 3. Lecture 3 is market application, and this second part is just listing potential market applications. So much in the same way as we did with technology, we'll now just give you an idea of what we mean by market application by working with our simple pen analogy. So here is our same pen that we've been using before, and setting up the color here for you. Yeah, we'll keep it at red. So this pen before, we listed all the different parts of the technology, where we mentioned the cap and the ink and the surface texture, the length, the size, the clip. You know, as many things as we could see about this, the different technologies used in the pen. And you know, here when we think about markets now, there's of course the gigantic general purpose writing market. Now, of course, it's not really one gigantic market. There's all sorts of sub-markets in there, but in general, we know from experience that pens do sell for quite a broad audience, and then there's other specialized pens that hit the target market. So in this particular case, there's certainly a general market. The question is, are the collections of technologies that we're showing here in this pen really the best for you know, for that you know, for that particular application. Another possible application is the artist's application. So in particular, our pen, you recall, is something that's relatively new. It's a fountain pen, and so inside here there's a tip that is unusual and took a long time to figure out how to manufacture, but now there is. So, you know, artists could be a particular special target group for that, because a fine tip like that with appropriate paper might be interesting. And then there's scientists, engineers, again for research notebooks and things like that. They might prefer to have this kind of pen. Other markets, as you think of them below this general purpose writing market, are school children. Do they prefer a particular kind? I'm pretty sure, for example, I mean, we shouldn't be thinking this way yet, since we're just trying to list all the different particular market applications, but would school children really want a fountain pen? You would think off the top of your head that that group of technologies focusing on that is probably not what they want. On the other hand, it's disposable, so it's less expensive. So now maybe it's interesting, and especially you can imagine if there's a lot of parochial schools where they're still teaching script writing, that they would need to possibly use fountain pens. So again, this is the kind of thinking that's occurred. You think about the different potential markets. College students, where maybe they're more sophisticated, they want the lower cost, but they still want a fountain pen. Research notebooks, drawings, artists, whatever. Of course, different kinds of professional fields. You know, maybe this is a particular kind of pen, and the collection of pens, technologies in this pen are appropriate for different groups. And again, you know, this is a broader category. It can be broken down into smaller ones. Now this gets kind of interesting. This gets back to our, you know, just thinking about markets in general and not thinking about the particular technologies in this pen, which is really what you should be doing if you're trying to innovate. That is, you don't want to let the particular technologies in this pen, like I've been doing, influence all of what you think about in terms of market application, because there might be an idea that allows you to go into some new territory. So, paperless professionals, do they use pens? And the answer is yes. It might use styluses or something like that. So again, you know, its relevance to this particular pen is not known, but the idea is that it gives you, you know, some idea. And here's another one: extreme conditions. Again, this particular pen is not that relevant to extreme conditions, but if we're really trying to open up innovation space, then there are extreme conditions, space and underwater. Pens that you know, you don't want to stop working just because you drop them in water, etc. and that goes in close to a new category, a related category, which is luxury, because people will buy pens of how they look or how they feel or how they look to others and things like that. And so again, just the general idea here is take something you know and say, hey, look, these are all the market applications possible. And later, we're not doing this yet, but later when you want to start narrowing them down, you can use things like common sense, although at your own peril, because that means you're putting yourself as the customer, and that's a dangerous thing to do sometimes. On the other hand, if you are good at it like Steve Jobs, you can save yourself a tremendous amount of time by filtering out things that aren't applications, markets that aren't going to be for your particular idea. But you use information from talking to companies in those markets. If it's customers, you talk to the consumer themselves. So there's many ways in which you collect this information to narrow this later. But right now, we're just trying to open it up, increase our, let's say, our potential for innovation. And so we list everything that we can potentially think of. I've already started doing this, but I wanted to give you an idea about how hard it is. We'll come back to this later, about how hard it is to think about market application without thinking about the technology or other categories. And we're going to get into this later, because the way I'm doing this process for you in this class, we're thinking about each one separately, and then we're going to talk about how they interact. And just to show you, even to think about the market applications, there tends to be overlap, and you can see that with how many people in each category are there. This deals with in each one of the previous market applications, as we start to think about their importance and how to narrow them. How many people? If there's one person that cares, and obviously maybe that's not really a significant market. On the other hand, if you want to make one pen, that could be perfectly fine. So this gets into what you'll hear marketing people talk about: market segment size and comparison of segments. So and as you go into these general categories, you always find out their segments and you learn more about them. The other thing is, how important is the price? Thinking about, well, if I sell fewer of them, but I can sell them at a higher price, like the luxury segment, then that would be interesting. So this is how you start to evaluate those different market applications where your particular pen technology. How could some of these segments grow with innovation? So this gets a little bit back to the thinking about, I could have an innovation that then changes the market. In a way, this is a combination of old market, new market. It's like the iPod example I gave before, where music players, were selling at a certain number, but then Apple's innovations sold way more. You could think of it as the old market, but in addition, it released a whole nother segment that was there, but couldn't be tapped before. So, it's getting into that. How about, where are these segments? So getting into a little bit about how we might serve these markets. Where are they concentrated? Because you can imagine if these applications are 4 people in every village spread out, that's one thing. But if they're all in one city, that could be a good thing if that city is near you, for example. So again, more considerations there. And finally, what do people in each category care about the most? So as you're looking at these market applications, thinking ahead, again, like I was saying before, we're not really supposed to be thinking about other segments, but certainly narrowing this is going to require us to think about what do people care about in each category, thinking, of course, about, well, maybe some of my technology items are of interest to them. If I build the pen a particular way, or if I give it a different color, I make it more slender, whatever. This is all kind of, again, we're trying not to fold in any particular dependence on other elements right now, but as I said, it's very difficult not to, especially when you want to evaluate these different market application segments and see what are the most relevant for the innovation you might be thinking of. It's very difficult to do without thinking, what do people care about? And they're going to care about particular features which relate to technology. So we'll stop there and pick up finally with our graphical, representation in the next lecture.